Creative leverage. How simple ideas become assets in the digital nest. They told you, ideas are cheap. That execution is everything. That until you have a team, a trademark, and a term sheet, you are simply dreaming. But the data tells a different story. In 2024, the median creator with fewer than 10,000 followers earned more per capita than the median employee at a Fortune 500 company. Not through virality, through leverage, through the quiet compounding of intellectual property built in rooms no venture capitalist will ever see. The living room is not where careers go to die. It is where the new architecture of wealth is being constructed, silently, systematically, without permission. Let us begin with first principles. An idea, in its raw form, holds no value. It is vapor. But an idea documented, refined, and distributed becomes an asset. And assets generate equity. This is not metaphor. This is economic taxonomy. When you record your insight on motherhood and publish it as a newsletter, you have created intellectual property. When that newsletter attracts 1,200 subscribers who trust your perspective, you have built distribution equity. When a brand approaches you to sponsor that newsletter, you have monetized attention arbitrage. At no point did you require an office, a business license, or a single employee. This is the fundamental shift. The home is no longer the site of consumption. It is the site of production. And production, historically, is where fortunes are built. But let us address the resistance you feel. The voice that whispers, "This is not real work." Real work happens in buildings with lobbies. That voice is not yours. It is institutional conditioning. For a century, we were taught that legitimacy requires commute, that authority requires corner offices, that scale requires square footage. This was true in the industrial economy. It is fiction in the digital economy. Consider the economics. A consultant operating from a corporate suite pays $40,000 annually in overhead before serving a single client. You, operating from your kitchen table, pay nothing. Your margins are structurally superior. Your flexibility is unmatched. When the market shifts, you pivot in hours. Your competitor files a facilities report. This is not romanticizing limitation. This is recognizing unfair advantage. Now, let us talk about the mechanism. Why does this model work when so many others fail? I call it the intimacy arbitrage. Platforms reward proximity to lived experience. The algorithm does not elevate polish, it elevates resonance, and resonance is born from specificity, from the small, true observation that only someone embedded in the domestic sphere would notice. You see patterns in behavior because you witness behavior unfiltered. You understand purchasing decisions because you make them under real constraints. You know what messaging lands because you are the market you serve. This is intelligence that cannot be outsourced. A marketing team in Manhattan cannot simulate the insight you generate while grocery shopping with 3 children. They can hire ethnographies, they can conduct focus groups, but they cannot replicate the lived texture of your daily reality. And that texture, when articulated clearly, becomes content. Content becomes audience. Audience becomes leverage. Let me show you the structure. Stage 1. Observation. You notice something others overlook. Perhaps it is the way mothers optimize morning routines. Perhaps it is the language gap in financial literacy for women re-entering the workforce. The specificity matters less than the authenticity. Stage 2. Articulation. You document this observation, not casually, with precision. You write it as a post, a thread, a video essay. You are not journaling. You are building intellectual property. Stage 3. Distribution. You publish this asset where your audience congregates, not everywhere. Strategically, you understand that attention is finite and focus compounds. Stage 4. Iteration. You refine based on response, not based on vanity metrics, based on depth of engagement. 10 thoughtful replies outweigh 10,000 passive likes. Stage 5. Monetization. You do not wait for permission. You do not wait for scale. When 50 people value your insight enough to pay for deeper access, you create that access. A membership, a course, a template. The format is secondary. The transaction is primary. This is the playbook. It is not complex, but it requires you to reject the myth that complexity equals credibility. Here is what shifts when you adopt this framework. You stop viewing your environment as constraint. The noise of the household becomes the context of your authority. The interruptions become proof that you operate in the real world, not the theoretical one. You stop waiting for ideal conditions. There is no magical future where time expands and responsibilities vanish. The architecture you build must accommodate reality, not fantasy. You stop seeking external validation. When your income derives from value you create and deliver directly, you are no longer auditing your worth through the approval of gatekeepers. This is sovereignty, not in the libertarian sense, in the economic sense. You control the means of production. You own the relationship with your customer. You set the terms. And the domestic headquarters, once dismissed as the space of the amateur, reveals itself as the ultimate competitive advantage. Low friction, high trust, infinite iteration. But let us be precise about execution. Building leverage requires more than intent. It requires infrastructure. Not the infrastructure of office parks and conference rooms. The infrastructure of focused attention and deliberate environment. You cannot architect wealth in chaos. Not because chaos is morally inferior, but because cognition is environmentally dependent. Your ability to think clearly, to write with precision, to make strategic decisions, correlates directly with the signals your space sends to your nervous system. This is where most fail. They treat the home office as afterthought, a borrowed corner of the dining table, a laptop balanced on laundry, and they wonder why the work feels fragmented. To build an empire from a quiet room, you must respect that room. I use the Sony WH-100X M5 noise-canceling headphones, not for luxury, for necessity. When I activate them, I am signaling to my brain that external chaos no longer has access. The children may be negotiating in the next room. The dishwasher may be mid-cycle, it does not matter. I have created a cognitive boundary. This is not indulgence, this is capital expenditure. The same way a restaurant invests in kitchen equipment, you invest in the tools that professionalize your output, because your output is your asset, and assets require maintenance. The headphones cost $350. They have generated, conservatively, $40,000 in revenue by protecting the hours where my thinking is sharpest. That is not correlation. That is causation. You must audit your environment with the same rigor you would audit a balance sheet. What is enhancing focus? What is degrading it? Where are you tolerating inefficiency because it feels ungrateful to demand more from a space that was never designed for commerce? Redesign it. Let us return to the larger frame. The shift happening in the global economy is not subtle. It is tectonic. The institutions that once controlled access to wealthy corporations, the credentials, the geography are losing their monopoly. But the replacement is not chaos. It is decentralization. And decentralization rewards those who understand leverage. You do not need 1 million followers. You need 1,000 people who trust you enough to pay attention when you speak. That is a microeconomy. That is scale. You do not need a degree from an elite institution. You need demonstrated expertise in a specific domain. The internet is the ultimate meritocracy. It does not care about your resume. It cares about your results. You do not need venture capital. You need profitable unit economics. When your cost to deliver value is near zero, your margin is near infinite. This is the mathematics of the home-based knowledge business, and mathematics does not negotiate. But here is the paradox. The same qualities that were once dismissed as feminine, the capacity for deep listening, the patience for iterative refinement, the fluency in emotional intelligence are now the most valuable currencies in the digital economy. Empathy is not soft. Empathy is strategic. When you understand what your audience needs before they can articulate it, you are not being kind. You are being predictive. And predictive capability is worth billions. The living room economy is not an accident. It is an inevitability, because the skills required to thrive here, presence, nuance, relational intelligence, are the skills that automation cannot replicate. AI can generate content. It cannot generate trust, and trust is the only moat that matters. So let me ask you directly, what if the interruptions are not the obstacle? What if they are the proof that you are building something real, in the real world, with real constraints? What if the fact that you are doing this without venture funding, without a team, without external validation, is not a bug but the entire point? What if the living room is not where you are stuck, but where you are headquartered? You are not just staying at home. You are operating from a position of structural advantage that the traditional economy cannot match. Low overhead, high trust, infinite leverage. This is not the future of work. This is the present, and you are not waiting for permission to participate. You are already building. Disclaimer: this content is for educational and informational purposes only, and does not replace consultation or assistance from a professional. Always consult a qualified professional for any questions related to finance, business, or investments.